हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल। आज हम बात करेंगे क्रेडिट रिस्क में ट्रांजैक्शंस के बारे में एंड हाउ these financial institutions are impacted. But before getting started, I hope you have seen the last video regarding very basic fundamentals on the credit risk. If not, make sure to see that. I'll provide the link in the I button. Because सारे videos continuity में हैं. If you miss one of the videos, there will be difficulty in understanding the next one. Okay, alright, let's get started. So today we will discuss the types of transactions that create credit risk. For each transaction generated credit risk, we will address three fundamental questions. First, what is the amount of credit risk? How much can be lost, or what is the total cost if the obliger fails to repay or perform? Next, what is the default probability of the counterparty? What is the likelihood that the obliger fails to pay or perform? And lastly, how much can be recovered in case of bankruptcy? In the case of non-payment or non-performance, what is the remedy and how much can be recovered, in what time frame and at what expense? These questions must come to your mind when understand the types of transactions that create credit risk. So credit risk is present in many types of transactions. Some are unique, but some are rather common. First is lending. It is the most obvious area. There is a cash outflow upfront from the lender to the borrower, with a promise of later repayment at a scheduled time. A second transaction type involves leases. When a piece of equipment or a building is made available by the entity, that is the lessor, to another entity, the lessee, that commits to make regular payments in the future. The lessor typically borrows money to finance the asset it is leasing and expects the future cash flow from the lessee to service the debt it contracted. The third type is the sale of a product or a service without immediate cash payment. Here, the seller sends an invoice to the buyer after the product has been shipped or the service performed, and the buyer has few weeks to pay. This is known as account receivable. Prepayment of goods and services is a fourth type of transaction that involves credit risk. Here, delivery is expected at a certain time and of certain quality, and/or performance, and the failure of the counterparty may lead to the loss of the advance payments and also generates business interruption cost. The fifth type of transaction that creates credit risk involves a party's claim on an asset in the custody of or under the management of another party, such as bank deposit. Most individuals choose their bank more for the services they offer or the proximity to their home rather than after a detailed analysis of its financial conditions. Major firms have sizable cash holdings. They are hesitant about where to put their money. They judge the credit rating of financial institutions and diversify deposits over many banks in order to avoid default and concentration risk. Next is the contingent claim. These are the claims that do not arise until after some specific event has taken place, such as an insurance loss, so that no advance payment or loan occurs. Insurance example. Suppose that the policyholder does not have a claim at the time of policy issue, but in the event of a covered loss, a claim is created. If the insurer does not pay, it becomes a credit loss. Pension example. Sponsor pension funds can have contingent claims on sponsors where liabilities are more than assets. Participants have credit risk when the sponsor is unable to meet its obligation. Derivative exposure. It is seven type of transaction that involves not a direct exposure, but a derivative exposure. It arises from derivatives transactions like interest rate swaps or foreign exchange futures. Both parties commit to make future payments, the amount of which are dependent on the market value of an underlying product. For example, the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Japanese yen. So, for a quick recap, I have prepared a table where the credit types that we have discussed last are being summarized here. So, the first is loan money. Here the losses result from the non-repayment, slow repayment, or dispute or enforcement. The loss type can be the face amount, time value of money, or the frictional cost respectively. Next comes the lease obligation. Here the losses result from the non-payment, and the loss type can be of the recovery of the asset, remarketing cost, difference in conditions. Next is credit type is the receivables. Here the losses result from the non-payment of goods delivered or service performed. The loss type can be the face amount. The next is the prepayment of goods or services. Here the losses can result from the non-delivery, performance on delivery not as contracted, slow delivery, dispute or enforcement. The loss type can be the replacement cost, incremental operating cost, time value of money, frictional cost respectively. Next is the derivative. The credit type is derivative. Here the losses result from the default of third party. The loss type can be the replacement cost, that is the mark to market value. Next is the deposits. Here the losses result from the non-prepayment. The loss type can be the face amount and the time value of money. Next credit type is the claim or contingent claim on an asset. Here the losses result from the non-repayment or non-collection, or the slow repayment or slow collection, or the dispute or enforcement. The loss type can be the face amount, time value of money, frictional cost. So what comes to my mind is who is exposed to credit risk? Majorly the financial institutions. So at this point, let us analyze how each one of the financial institutions is prone to credit risk. First comes as the banks. The credit portfolios and risk management. The banks grant loans which enables them to possess huge credit portfolios and sophisticated risk management frameworks. Deteriorating credit risk appetite over the years can be attributed to profit margins are too low, regulatory capital requirements are too high. Claiming restrictive credit risk globally leads to reduced willingness towards credit. Shift in business focus. There can be the case where banks shift their business focus. Services-based large banks are now more concerned with merger and acquisition policies, M&A policies, equity and debt issuance. But exposure to credit risk through loans and credit lines continue to be significant. Next is the purpose of loans and lines of credit in banks. They are provided to corporate clientele, in several cases for relationship. By themselves not necessarily profitable, but value add in securing broader client relationship. Credit risk management practices. Employing specialized credit risk teams who assess the creditworthiness of the borrower, check the legal documentation of the loan files, and hedge credit exposure using capital markets. Next comes as the asset-based lending in banks. It consists of repurchase agreements, securities lending. It is lending money or lending securities, but only on the condition that some collateral, such as treasury stocks or equities, is provided. In the event of default, the bank liquidates the collateral to mitigate losses. Risk with collateral in banks. So collateral is meant to fully cover loan or security values. Market volatility can reduce collateral value just when a default occurs. Hence, exposure is closely monitored and managed. Now, let's talk about the asset managers. What they do? They collect money from individuals and institutions, invest fund based on clients' risk and return goals. Types of investment preferences. There are conservative investors. They prefer money market funds. They invest in short-term, high-quality debt. Next is the risk-tolerant investors. They choose mutual funds. They focus on equities, on emerging markets, debt or equity. Industry size and players. Asset management is a massive global business. Major US firms like State Street Global Advisors, Fidelity Investments, each manage over 1 trillion in third-party funds. Credit risk in asset management. Due to large investment volumes, asset managers face significant credit risk. Credit risk management is crucial to their operations. Investment selection process. Managers evaluate the creditworthiness of corporate borrowers, sovereign meaning government borrowers. Their goal is to avoid losses that would hurt fund performance and client returns. Internal risk management. Portfolio managers may be attracted to high return investments. Risk managers act as a control, warning against investments with repayment risk. Next comes is the hedge funds and the credit risk. So hedge funds manage large sums of capital and face significant exposure. They are known for being high risk, high return investors. They play a unique and aggressive role in financial markets compared to traditional asset managers. Investment strategy and risk appetite. Investors in hedge funds accept more risk in exchange for potentially higher returns. Hedge funds invest in risky financial instruments, distressed assets, complex derivatives. They operate outside traditional investment constraints. Their role in financial markets. Hedge funds enable risk transfer that facilitates business transactions. The examples of credit risk heavy activities are buying distressed loans, that is debt of financially troubled companies, selling credit protection via credit default swaps, that is CDS, taking the riskiest tranches in commercial real estate deals. Active involvement in credit events. They are involved in corporate restructurings to maximize their recovery value, influence decision making due to stake in risky debt. This contrasts with passive investors who typically try to avoid such situations. Profiting from distress in hedge funds. So the key distinction is hedge funds view defaults and financial distress as opportunities, not just risk. Rather than avoiding bad credit, they bet on it. Their strategies include shorting debt, buying CDS protection, speculating on defaults without direct exposure to the issuer. So what is the use of derivatives here? Growth of credit derivatives like CDS has simplified execution of complex credit strategies. It enables bets on credit events without needing to own the actual bond or loan. Now next comes the insurance companies and credit risk. So what's the overview of the credit risk exposure? Insurance companies face credit risk primarily in two major areas. First is the investment portfolio. Next is the reinsurance recoverables. So let's talk about the investment portfolio and understand how insurance business works. Insurers collect premiums, invest the cash, and later pay claims. Profits can be generated even if underwriting options show losses, thanks to investment returns. For example, Warren Buffett's insurance company, example is GEICO. It uses this model to generate investment capital. Balance sheet structure. Liabilities, claims, reserves, future obligations to policyholders. And under the assets, investment holdings backed by the policyholder funds, not the shareholders. So what's the investment strategy? Insurers are major institutional investors. For example, MetLife held $500 billion in assets in Q3 2011. They must balance expected return, benefit shareholders, and low risk profile, which will protect the policyholders. Credit risk considerations. Portfolio includes low risk assets, meaning the treasury bonds with minimal credit analysis needed. High risk, high yield assets, commercial real estate debt, hedge funds, etc. So even if a third party asset managers handle day-to-day investments, in-house team oversee credit risk. Separate account management. Insurers manage policyholder funds like mutual funds. For example, MetLife managed $200 billion plus in separate accounts. Credit risk exposure depends on whether the insurer guarantees returns. Yes equal to high credit risk and no is equal to reputation risk only. Poor investment choices may damage the insurer's reputation or even lead to capital depletion or insolvency. So next comes the topic reinsurance recoverables. So what is reinsurance? Insurers transfers part of their risk to reinsurers to avoid losses that exceed reserves. The model talks about the insurer pays premium to reinsurer and then reinsurer covers part of the future claims. Credit risk in reinsurance. After a claim, the primary insurer files a claim with the reinsurer, which is equal to reinsurance receivable. Time lag before payment equal to potential default risk. Small frequent losses. Here risk is primarily due to delay or reinsurer's disappearance. Catastrophic events, for example hurricanes. Here credit risk is much higher due to potentially insufficient funds on the reinsurer's side. Risk management strategies. Diversification is key. Don't rely on single reinsurer. Industry is highly concentrated, making diversification harder. One must necessarily focus on it. Contingent claims. We have talked about that in just a few minutes back. In liability insurance, claims may surface decades later. Insurers estimate what future claims might be, creates a contingent asset called a reinsurance recoverable. It is concentrated, making diversification harder. What's the importance? For many insurers, reinsurance recoverables are the largest asset item after investment holdings. They are based on the assumption that reinsurer will honor future obligations. Now let's discuss pension funds and the credit risk associated with it. So what are pension funds? Lifelike insurers, pension fund sponsors, typically corporate employers or public institutions, invest money on behalf of pension beneficiaries. These investments are meant to meet future obligations to retired employees. Size of the US pension fund market as of September 2011. Private pension funds, they manage $12 trillion in assets. Public pension funds, state and local governments, they manage $989 billion in assets. Federal pension funds, they have limited assets as most obligations are unfunded. Credit risk in pension fund investments. A large portion of pension assets, 25 to 50%, is invested in credit risky instruments such as corporate bonds, asset-backed securities, high-yield debt, other fixed income products with non-zero default risk. Regulatory oversight. Pension funds, private pension funds are subject to ERISA, that is Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974. ERISA includes prudent investors rules to protect beneficiaries. Public pension funds, they have similar fiduciary standards to ensure responsible investing. Next comes the credit risk management responsibilities in pension funds. Even when outsourcing asset management to third-party professionals, the fund sponsors remains accountable. Both private and public pension sponsors must actively monitor and manage credit risk, ensure compliance with prudent standards, protect long-term financial health of the fund. Federal pension funds, a special note. Unlike private and state or local pensions, federal pensions are mostly unfunded. This means they don't have large investment portfolios. Government budgets fund the obligations directly rather than relying on investment returns. Now comes the credit risk in corporates. Journal exposure to credit risk. Unavoidable reality. Corporates cannot escape credit risk. It's an inherent part of doing business. Lack of tolerance. Stakeholders like investors, rating agencies, and media have low tolerance for credit losses. Reputational risk. If a customer goes bankrupt, the corporate may appear on public creditor list, potentially damaging its reputation and stock price. Not a core strength. Credit risk management is often not a corporate core competency, making it more challenging. Primary source of credit risk, which is account receivables in corporates. Corporates extend short-term credit when customers buy goods or services on payment terms. Sales are rarely paid upfront, making the company a creditor to its customers. Stronger customers get longer and better payment terms. For example, Walmart in US and Carrefour in France are known for securing highly favorable terms from suppliers. Challenges in assessing customer credit worthiness. Public, reliable information is often scarce, especially for smaller clients. Large clients may have available public financials, but the majority are small firms with limited transparency. Progress has been made in developed countries to require financial disclosure, but gaps still exist. So, what are the tools for credit assessment? The corporates use external databases and credit scoring services like Dun & Bradstreet in US, Bureau van Dijk in Europe, Teiko Data Bank in Japan. These provide financial data, payment histories, and credit scores to support decisions. What are the methods to mitigate these receivables risk? First is the credit insurance. Corporates can insure receivables. The insurer covers losses if the customer doesn't pay. Next is the factoring. They can sell receivables to a factoring company in exchange for immediate cash and credit protection. Third is the documentary credit. For internal trade, corporates may use letters of credit to ensure payment from foreign buyers. Second source of credit risk in corporates is the investment of the excess cash. Large corporations often hold excess cash due to high bond demand, low yields, opportunistic borrowing even when not immediately needed. For example, in 2012, companies borrowed large sums at low rates but didn't deploy funds due to recession and lack of opportunities. Investment risks. Surplus cash is often deposited in banks and they are invested in short-term securities. Both carry credit risk. The bank or issuer may default. Even cash wasn't fully safe during the financial crisis. Corporates started re-evaluating banks and diversifying deposits. What's the post-crisis behavior? The demand for US Treasury bills surged, driving yields negative. Corporates were willing to pay to avoid credit losses. Ironically, corporate bonds gained popularity post-crisis as companies were seen as safer than government or the GSEs. Third source of credit risk in corporates is the derivatives and commodity contracts. Some corporates engage in derivative trading, either by choice or necessity. For example, food companies use agricultural futures. Utilities use fuel futures to stabilize cost. Credit risk in derivatives. Futures and forwards expose both parties to counterparty risk. The seller may fail to deliver, or the buyer may fail to pay. Risk mitigation in future markets. Clearing houses require margins, that is collaterals, that vary with price. Serves as a backstop in case of default. Forward contracts. When trade happens outside the organized exchanges, that is in forward markets, the risk is higher. No clearing house protection equal to significant exposure. And if a counterparty defaults, the corporates must re-enter the market at possibly unfavorable prices, leading to potential losses. Fourth source of credit risk in corporates is the vendor financing. Some corporates offer in-house financing to help customers buy or lease their products, known as vendor financing. For example, the IBM Global Financing, Caterpillar Financial Services, Ford Motor Credit. How it works: financing arms buy products from their parents using borrowed money. They then rent or lease to end customers. Operates like non-deposit banks. So what's the credit risk here? If customer default on payments, the corporate absorbs the losses. So let's discuss the overall approach here. Corporates are generally conservative in managing credit risk. They prefer safe investments like cash or equivalents, constantly require counterparties, especially after the financial crisis, increasing reliance on tools and services to help manage exposure. Now comes the credit risk for individuals. It's not commonly considered, but it's very real. Most individuals don't actively think about credit risk. In reality, every household faces it, often in ways that they don't expect. Everyday example, for example, the contractor risk. Paying the contractor upfront, who then falls to complete the job, is equal to credit risk. You extended credit, that is payment in advance, and now risk losing it. Investing involves credit risk. Just like companies, individuals take on credit risk when they invest. Choosing a high yield bond fund over a safer investment grade bond fund means more potential return equal to more credit risk. Risk of loss increases if borrowers in the fund default. Bank deposits are not risk-free. Depositing money in a bank also carries credit risk. If a bank fails, depositors may lose their money. Protection for depositors. In many countries, governments offer deposit insurance. In the US, the FDIC insures deposits up to $250,000 per account. It helps protect individuals from losses if a bank collapses. So why manage credit risk? Credit risk is controllable. It doesn't appear randomly. It comes from known, identifiable sources mostly. If it can be anticipated, there's no excuse to manage it. Managing credit risk is proactive, not reactive. It is driven by human decisions. Credit risk reflects decisions made by a borrower's manager. These decisions are shaped by incentives from shareholders. To assess credit risk, we must understand what motivates the people running the company. The cost of poor credit risk management. Weak management can lead to big losses or even bankruptcy. Credit portfolios require a strong equity base to absorb potential shocks. Small, expected losses are normal, but large unexpected losses can be fatal. So, 3 pillars of credit risk management. First is survival. It is critical for banks but also essential for non-financial companies. Large credit losses can destroy a business. Second is the profitability. Simple rule: the less you lose, the more you keep, especially vital in low margin industries. Third is return on equity, ROE. Too much equity equal to low ROE. Too much debt equal to high risk. The solution is balanced capital plus smart risk management. So, the lessons from the financial crisis. Firms with strong credit risk practices outperform peers. Credit risk management helps companies stay resilient and profitable in any economic environment. That's all for today. If you like the content so far and want to stay tuned to credit risk, more to learnings in this field, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. See you in the next video. Thank you.